Vader's ultimate secret weapon. Imagine being so powerful that Darth Vader himself trains you in secret to help overthrow Emperor Palpatine. That's exactly who Galen Marek, codename Starkiller, was in the Star Wars Legends continuity. Introduced in the 2008 video game The Force Unleashed, Starkiller represents one of the most powerful Force users ever conceived in Star Wars lore, even though he never made it into official Disney canon. The story begins on Kashyyyk, during the dark times of the Empire's reign. Vader is hunting down the last surviving Jedi when he discovers a young boy, the son of Jedi Knight Galen Marek. The boy's raw Force sensitivity is immediately apparent. After killing Kento, Vader makes a shocking decision. Instead of executing the child as Palpatine would demand, he secretly takes Galen as his apprentice, hiding him from the Emperor for years. This wasn't an act of mercy. Vader's intentions were coldly pragmatic. According to the Force Unleashed novel and game, Vader planned to use Galen as a weapon against Palpatine, following the Sith rule of two tradition where the apprentice eventually challenges the master. For nearly 2 decades, Vader trained Galen in complete secrecy aboard the Executor, pushing him to emotional extremes to fuel his dark side power. The training was brutal beyond measure. Vader showed no compassion, only ruthless efficiency. Galen's regimen included fighting entire battalions of combat droids, surviving deadly trials, and learning to kill without hesitation. Vader wanted a perfect weapon, nothing less. What makes this even more tragic is that Galen never knew another life. He had no memory of his father or the Jedi way. The only father figure he knew was the mechanized monster who murdered his real dad. Vader exploited this completely, making Galen utterly dependent on him while grooming him for the ultimate betrayal against Palpatine. 2. Power beyond any apprentice. Here's where Starkiller becomes absolutely insane from a power-scaling perspective. The Force Unleashed games and novels establish him as potentially the most powerful Force user between the fall of the Republic and the rise of Luke Skywalker. We're talking about a level of raw power that makes most Jedi Masters look weak by comparison. His signature ability was Force Lightning, powerful enough to literally tear apart Imperial Star Destroyers. In The Force Unleashed, Galen channels lightning so intense that it overloads massive capital ships. This isn't the parlor trick lightning we see from Count Dooku, or even Palpatine's standard attacks. This is devastating, installation-destroying energy that could level entire facilities. But the lightning is just the beginning. Starkiller's telekinetic abilities reached legendary status when he literally pulled a Star Destroyer out of the sky on Raxus Prime. According to the Force Unleashed game and novel, while the ship was already falling, Galen used the Force to alter its trajectory and guide its crash. This remains one of the most visually spectacular and power-intensive Force feats in all of Star Wars Legends. His combat abilities were equally terrifying. Starkiller wielded 2 lightsabers with a reverse grip style that combined Jar-Kai dual-blade techniques with Sheen form aggression. The Force Unleashed campaign guide describes his fighting style as unpredictable and overwhelmingly aggressive, flowing between lightsaber combat and devastating Force powers seamlessly. He could fight entire groups of opponents simultaneously while hurling objects and unleashing Force attacks. Perhaps most impressive was his Force Repulse ability, a 360-degree explosive Force push that could clear entire rooms of enemies. This technique appears in both Force Unleashed games as Galen's signature move, creating a devastating shockwave that throws back everything around him with potentially lethal force. Few Force users in Star Wars lore have demonstrated this level of omnidirectional Force control. The scary part? Starkiller was only around 17 years old during The Force Unleashed. He hadn't reached his peak potential. If Vader's training continued for another decade or two, Galen could have become something truly unstoppable, potentially surpassing even Vader himself in raw power, if not in experience. 3. The Rogue Shadow Missions. Vader didn't keep Starkiller locked away for meditation and training. He deployed him as an assassin across the galaxy, hunting down the last surviving Jedi with ruthless efficiency. These missions, detailed extensively in the Force Unleashed game and novel, showcase not just Galen's power but his willingness to embrace the dark side completely. His first major mission targeted Jedi Master Rahm Kota, a Clone Wars veteran who survived Order 66 and continued fighting the Empire with his own militia. Starkiller infiltrated Kota's operation on a TIE fighter construction facility above Nar Shaddaa. The confrontation was brutal. Galen systematically destroyed Kota's militia before engaging the Jedi Master directly, ultimately defeating him and leaving him blinded but alive. Next came Shaak, the Togruta Jedi Master who survived the Clone Wars. Vader sent Starkiller to Felucia, where Shaak had been hiding and communing with the Force through the planet's intense natural connection. The battle pushed both combatants to their limits, but Starkiller's raw power and Vader's training proved superior. He killed Shaak, eliminating one of the last Council-level Jedi Masters. The hunt continued to Kashyyyk, where Starkiller confronted another survivor. But these missions started changing him. His pilot, Juno Eclipse, began representing something Vader never intended: a connection to light and compassion. Juno's inherent goodness and questioning of Imperial brutality planted seeds of doubt in Galen's mind. Everything changed when Vader betrayed him. After Galen successfully eliminated the Jedi targets, Vader brought him before Emperor Palpatine. But instead of the triumphant moment Galen expected, Vader impaled him with his lightsaber, attempting to kill him on the Emperor's orders. Palpatine had discovered the secret apprentice, and Vader chose his master over his weapon. This betrayal shattered everything Galen believed. The only father figure he knew had tried to murder him for political convenience. But the betrayal wasn't complete. Vader secretly saved and revived Galen, claiming the apparent execution satisfied Palpatine. Now Vader gave his apprentice a new mission: create a rebellion against the Empire that they could exploit to destroy the Emperor together. If you're loving this deep dive into Legends lore that Disney tried to forget, smash that hype button and show this video some love. Let's prove that Starkiller's story still matters to Star Wars fans everywhere, even if he's not canon anymore. 4. The Rebellion's Dark Origin. Here's where Starkiller's story becomes crucial to Star Wars history, even in Legends continuity. Galen's new mission from Vader was to gather Palpatine's enemies and create an organized resistance. The twisted irony? The Rebel Alliance, the heroes of the original trilogy, has its Legends origins in a Sith manipulation scheme. Starkiller began recruiting the Empire's most prominent opponents. He convinced Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan, Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila, Senator Garm Bel Iblis of Corellia, and even former Jedi General Rahm Kota to unite against Palpatine. According to the Force Unleashed novel, Galen used his knowledge of Imperial operations and his combat abilities to prove his commitment to their cause, despite his dark past. But something profound was happening to Galen during this mission. Working alongside Juno Eclipse and seeing the genuine compassion and conviction of the rebellion's founders began transforming him. His growing internal conflict between the dark side training that defined his entire life and the possibility of genuine redemption through the light created a fundamental shift in his character. Rahm Kota became an unexpected father figure, the first real Jedi influence in Galen's life. Kota recognized the good buried beneath Vader's brutal conditioning. The blind Jedi Master began teaching Galen about the Jedi way, not through formal training but through example and philosophy. Kota saw what Vader never could, that Galen's heart could still choose the light. The budding rebellion culminated in a secret meeting on Corellia, where the alliance to restore the Republic was formally created. But Imperial forces, tipped off by Vader himself, ambushed the meeting and captured the rebel leadership. Galen realized the horrifying truth. Vader had used him to identify and gather Palpatine's enemies in one location for easy elimination. The entire rebellion was a trap from the beginning. This betrayal cut even deeper than the first. Vader hadn't saved Galen out of sentiment or even pragmatic partnership. He'd used him as bait, exploiting his desire for purpose and belonging to serve the Empire's interests. Everything Galen had built, every connection he'd made, was based on Vader's lie. 5. Confronting his true master. Galen faced an impossible choice: abandon the rebels to their fate and save himself, or assault the Death Star where they were being held and almost certainly die. This decision defined Galen's entire existence. For the first time in his life, he chose based not on Vader's orders or darkside rage, but on genuine, selfless compassion. The assault on the Death Star represents Starkiller at his absolute peak. Galen fought through legions of Imperial forces, including entire battalions of stormtroopers and specialized shadow troopers. His combat prowess was so overwhelming that standard Imperial soldiers posed virtually no threat. He was a one-man invasion force. The real battle came when he confronted Vader in the Death Star's observation dome. This wasn't the training duels of Galen's childhood. This was a genuine fight to the death between master and apprentice, between dark and light, between the past and the possibility of redemption. Their lightsaber battle was catastrophically destructive, with both combatants using the Force to hurl massive objects and unleash devastating attacks. Galen's rage initially gave him the advantage. Years of resentment and betrayal fueled his attacks, pushing Vader back with pure aggression. But Rahm Kota's words echoed in his mind, reminding him that true strength comes from purpose beyond rage. Galen began fighting not from hatred, but from the desire to protect those he'd come to care about. The turning point came when Galen actually defeated Vader, bringing him to his knees. But instead of delivering the killing blow, Galen chose mercy. He deactivated his lightsaber and turned away from his former master. This single act of compassion represented everything Vader tried to destroy in him, and everything Galen had fought his entire life to suppress. Then Emperor Palpatine arrived. The Dark Lord of the Sith had been watching the entire confrontation, waiting to see how his pawns would resolve their conflict. Palpatine immediately recognized Galen's power and offered him the chance to kill Vader and become the Emperor's new apprentice. Everything Vader had promised was now being offered by Palpatine himself. 6. The Ultimate Sacrifice Play. This is where Starkiller's story reaches its tragic and heroic climax. Galen refused Palpatine's offer. Instead, he attacked the Emperor directly, attempting to kill the most powerful Sith Lord in the galaxy to buy time for the rebel leaders to escape. This battle was absolutely one-sided from a technical perspective, but desperate and heroic from Galen's. Palpatine's Force lightning was beyond anything Galen had ever experienced. The Emperor's attacks were so powerful, they began tearing Galen apart at a cellular level. But Galen didn't back down. He used every ounce of his power to shield the rebels and hold Palpatine's attention, knowing he was going to die. The final moments are heartbreaking. Galen created a massive Force blast, sacrificing himself to give the rebels time to board their ship and escape. His body was literally disintegrated by the energy feedback from his final attack, leaving nothing behind but his lightsaber crystals and the memory of his sacrifice. His death had profound consequences. The rebel leaders, inspired by Galen's sacrifice, adopted his family crest as the symbol of the Rebel Alliance. The Marek family starbird became the iconic symbol of hope that would appear on X-wings, pilot helmets, and rebel flags throughout the galactic civil war. But the story doesn't quite end there. The Force Unleashed 2 introduced a controversial twist. Vader cloned Galen Marek, creating multiple attempts to recreate his perfect apprentice. The canon status of these clones within Legends itself is debatable, but one clone achieved consciousness and identity, struggling with implanted memories and genuine feelings. The clone storyline raises disturbing questions about identity and whether Starkiller ever truly died or simply continued in a new form. This clone's journey toward independence from Vader and search for Juno Eclipse continues Galen's redemption arc, though many fans prefer to consider the original Galen sacrifice as the true ending. Regardless of the clone controversy, Galen Marek's impact on Legends continuity remains significant. He directly inspired the creation of the Rebel Alliance, killed multiple surviving Jedi, and demonstrated that even someone raised entirely in darkness can choose the light when shown genuine compassion and purpose beyond rage. 7. Canon versus Legends status. Here's where we need to address the massive elephant in the room. Starkiller is not canon. When Disney acquired Lucasfilm in 2012 and reset the Star Wars canon in 2014, the Force Unleashed games, novels, and comics were relegated to the Legends continuity. In official Disney canon, Galen Marek never existed. The name Starkiller itself has interesting canonical history. George Lucas originally named Luke Skywalker as Luke Starkiller in early drafts of the original film. The Force Unleashed deliberately chose this discarded name as a deep-cut reference to Star Wars history, but that's the only canonical connection. In Disney canon, Starkiller Base from The Force Awakens represents the name's only official appearance. The planet-destroying superweapon built into the ice planet Elam has no connection to Galen Marek whatsoever. The base was named by the First Order as a propaganda statement about destroying star systems. Why didn't Starkiller make the canon cut? The Force Unleashed portrayed power levels that contradicted Disney's vision for Force abilities during the Dark Times era. Having someone pull down Star Destroyers and battle Palpatine to a standstill between Episodes 3 and 4 creates serious continuity problems with the original trilogy's depiction of Force users. Additionally, Starkiller's role in founding the Rebel Alliance contradicts the canon establishment of the rebellion through Star Wars Rebels and Rogue One. In canon, Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Saw Gerrera organized resistance movements that gradually unified into the Alliance. There's no secret Sith apprentice pulling strings behind the scenes. That said, elements of Starkiller's story have influenced canon content. The Inquisitors, introduced in Star Wars Rebels and further explored in Jedi Fallen Order, serve similar narrative functions as dark side agents hunting surviving Jedi. Vader trained these former Jedi as Imperial enforcers, echoing the master-apprentice dynamic he shared with Galen. Some fans have theorized that Starkiller could be reintroduced in modified form, perhaps as an Inquisitor or a different secret apprentice. But as of current knowledge, there's been no official indication that Disney plans to canonize Galen Marek in any form. The character remains firmly in Legends territory. 8. Could he actually win? Let's address the ultimate question: could Starkiller actually have killed Emperor Palpatine if circumstances had been different? This requires analyzing Legends' power scaling and comparing Galen's demonstrated abilities against Palpatine's established capabilities. From a raw power perspective, Starkiller's feats are genuinely impressive even by Legends standards. Pulling down a Star Destroyer, defeating experienced Jedi Masters, and surviving direct combat with both Vader and Palpatine demonstrate exceptional Force sensitivity and combat skill. The Force Unleashed campaign guide rates his Force potential as extraordinarily high, potentially approaching Anakin Skywalker's legendary midi-chlorian count. However, power isn't everything in Sith philosophy. Palpatine's true strength came from his encyclopedic knowledge of dark side techniques, his strategic brilliance, and his mastery of Force manipulation far beyond simple combat abilities. Palpatine didn't just have raw power, he had decades of study and refinement that Galen lacked. The Death Star confrontation shows Palpatine essentially toying with Galen. The Emperor never appears genuinely threatened, even when Galen unleashes his full power. Palpatine's Force. Lightning breaks through Galen's defenses almost immediately, suggesting a fundamental gap in their abilities despite Galen's impressive strength. Timing also matters critically. Galen, at around 17 years old, while powerful, hadn't reached his peak potential. Force users continue developing their abilities well into middle age. If Galen had survived and trained for another decade or two, particularly under proper Jedi guidance, his power level could have increased dramatically. The hypothetical scenario where Starkiller achieves his full potential and confronts Palpatine is fascinating to consider. With proper training, emotional balance, and strategic preparation, could an experienced Starkiller defeat the Emperor? Vader genuinely believed Galen could help overthrow Palpatine, implying the potential was there. But potential isn't destiny. Palpatine survived for good reason. He manipulated everyone around him, anticipated betrayals, and never allowed anyone to become powerful enough to genuinely threaten him until Luke Skywalker's compassion finally broke his hold on Vader. Palpatine had contingencies for Galen from the beginning. The tragic reality is that Starkiller never had a real chance of killing Palpatine alone. His path was always going to end in sacrifice or servitude. But what he accomplished, inspiring the rebellion and choosing light over darkness despite every reason to embrace evil, might matter more than winning would have. Starkiller might not be canon, but his story remains one of the most epic what-if scenarios in Star Wars history. If you want more deep dives into Legends material that push Star Wars to its absolute limits, hit that hype button and let us know what forgotten characters deserve the spotlight next.